I'm loud and this microphone is loud. This is a deadly combination. Good afternoon, everyone. How's your energy level? Woo! AIBC. Okay, don't be shy and retiring. Come on out. We doubled like a virus over the course of this morning, so now we have an expanded panel. So I'm gonna have to look left and I'm gonna have to look right, huh? Okay, if I ignore you, just like throw something at me. Okay, well, center of gravity is moving.
Yes, ladies first.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Good.
All right, Gordon.
Okay, so our topic is central bank digital currencies, and do they have a future in the EMEA region? Interesting. The central bank digital currencies have been floating around for a while, but maybe with the current conflicts in the world, it's picking up steam. Maybe it's not. We'll see. Anyways, I'm Gordon Einstein. I'm your panel moderator today, and
hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Chivunga. I'm CEO of Global Policy House and advisor to the African Union.
we can do more than that. And your interest in CBDC?
My interest in CBDC, I've been looking at CBDC, working with central banks around the world, trying to evaluate what the purpose of CBDCs are, especially in terms of cross-border and international settlements as well. So we've been doing a lot of work, looking at how we can introduce CBDC and how they're relevant in different countries.
Fantastic. And what is your connection to the region in question?
Yeah, no, the region in question, we've been obviously discussing with a couple of governments around what their intentions are around CBDC. So it's very early stage. We're very interested, of course, between the linkages between the region and Africa specifically, because obviously there's a lot of trading opportunities, a lot of investment opportunities between Africa and the Middle East. So we're very, very interested to look at, for example, cross-border, wholesale CBDCs, for example, and how that might work between those two different regions. So it's very, very important, I think, that we interact. We see lots of growth potential between the two regions, of course, as well. So we've been spending a lot of time here in the Middle East, and of course, we, as a company, we're also expanding into the Middle East.
Fantastic, and we'll dive deeper, of course. Yeah. My friend, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pekka Kelkka, originally from Finland, 16 years here in Dubai. Last 6 years full-time on blockchain and cryptos, which has nothing to do with central bank digital currency. I'm happy to give my view and this blockchain view of central bank digital currency in this panel.
Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex Lightman. I've written 60 white papers, including 23 crypto white papers. I've written 8 books, 4 of which are in my name. And I've advised at least one government on central bank digital currency that's out on the market right now. And I'm not sure when we're going to start editorializing. Is this just the intro of who we are?
It's just the intro. She's our featured guest, so I give her a little bit more leeway, as is appropriate. But we'll come back to you, my friend.
Okay.
But you're a polymath, you're my friend, and you know this stuff, so we had to have you.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so let's come back. I remember, I think last year or a couple years ago, central bank digital currencies was kind of the hot conference topic, and then it seemed to die down a bit with the NFT and metaverse action going on. But obviously, there's the hype cycle. Things kind of get frothy, they dive down, and then there's the curve of adoption. Can you expand on where are we in this process? Are central bank digital currencies even a realistic possibility in the short term? Just kind of give us your thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, look, central bank digital currencies are definitely coming to market, whether people kind of agree to that or not. Of course, we can kind of argue about the pros and cons. So, I think over 80% of the world central banks are looking at CBDCs, as we call them. So, it's something that's not going to die down. I think the big conversation is very much around when you start to think about privacy issues, policy issues with CBDCs. There's quite a bit of concern around how do we ensure a level of privacy with CBDCs. So again, it depends what type of CBDC we're talking about. If we're talking about the retail side of things, most central banks are looking at the retail CBDCs. And of course, there's been a couple of trials that are going on between wholesale CBDCs, like Singapore. I know is looking at doing some stuff. In Africa, of course, we've also just recently, invested in looking at CBDC across the continent. Because in Africa, we've got 55 countries. It's not one country. And across those countries, we have to think about things like interoperability, right? How can you make sure that even if you introduce individual CBDCs, how can we ensure there's interoperability? And then how does that fit in with, for example, a single currency for the continent? So there's lots of shifts that are happening. China is a little bit ahead in terms of their digital yuan, and of course the Bahamas had introduced their central bank. So there's a lot of movement happening. It's not going to go away. I think there's a lot of discussions around privacy and how do we ensure privacy and governance with CBDC, which is really interesting.
Interesting. And you're raising an interesting point, which is in the case of Africa, it's a little bit, you're combining two separate things. When you do a CBDC, there's obviously the central bank digital currency, but implicit in that, because there's so many different countries that are independent of each other, there's a currency union aspect also. So it sort of acts like a backdoor way of achieving a currency union.
No, not necessarily. I mean, we've had discussions around what about having an actual single currency for the whole continent, right? And then you have individual countries like Nigeria, like Ghana, who've started exploring CBDCs for their countries. My point is very much a lot to the governments and the heads of government. Every time I'm engaging with them, my point is we need to make sure that those systems are interoperable, because if they're not interoperable, then we're going to face difficulties down the line. If we're using different currencies, right, and they're not interoperable, then there's a problem. And currently, Africa's drive at the moment is to create a single market, almost like the European model. So we want to create a single market. We want to be able to trade internally across Africa and use the currency that we have and strengthen the currency. So there's a lot of reliance on foreign currency at the moment, and we want to shift that a little bit.
All right, so before we hit the other guests, gentlemen, I'll get you in a second. I'm going to throw a political wrench into this and see how you handle it. I recently got exposed into, I guess, the CFA, France's African use only franc.
Yeah.
How does, I'm going to be real blunt. Is that a colonial vestige that just needs to go? Is that something that can be integrated into CBDC? How does that get handled when you have this sort of external connection?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, look, I think what we need to think about is monetary independence. I think for me, what I've been calling for is actually monetary independence for a lot of these countries. Because when you have monetary independence, I think you've got a lot more leverage, right? And you can, decide on a number of things. So I think that's going to shift over time. It's not going to happen straight away, but it's going to shift over time, especially now that we are shifting policy focus across the continent, regardless of whether it's Francophone Africa or other parts of Africa. So I think we really need to look carefully around the currency. You see, monetary flow is going to help determine a lot of things, be it around trade. If you don't have a functioning payments ecosystem or a functioning monetary system within the countries, then there's a problem, right?
Fair
so
enough.
we need to look at a holistic picture rather than, kind of individually.
I like the subtle political implications of all this. It's interesting. All right, my friend, wax poetic.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Michelle. Really interesting views on the central bank digital currency. A few views from my side. First of all, as I mentioned already, the central bank digital currency has nothing to do with blockchain. It is really centralized, which also means that it doesn't help the inflation because they print it as much as every government and central bank wants. And another thing is that the control of our money, the transactions, what we do with our money, will be even increased when this central bank digital currency will be launched. But and when it's not on blockchain, it also means that they don't need these platforms. They don't need anything decentralized. They don't need validator layer on the decentralized networks. So. And if I got it right, Michelle, maybe you can have insights on this also. My view on this is that the goal is to get rid of the commercial banking layer. Then central bank is controlling everything when we have it. So that's how I see it. Of course, it can be streamlining the procedures and the money mechanisms, but the problems, it doesn't help the problems when it comes to inflation and printing money, for example. Governments and central banks can do it as much as they want. So it's really inflation is there. Just the opposite of Bitcoin and, for example, Ethereum is today because it's getting deflationary as we speak.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was just going to add quickly to your point. Sorry, shall I let him go? No, let him go first, and then I'll come. He wants to speak.
Nope, it's my panel. Go. And then
Yeah,
Alex?
no. I just wanted to pick up quickly on what he was saying around CBDC. So look, you have to be quite specific. Depends how you design your CBDC, right? So how you design your CBDC, you can utilize DLT or blockchain distributed ledger technology, but right, it depends on how you design and structure your CBDCs. And how you structure your CBDCs should also bear in context the country, at country level, because every country is structurally different. We have different issues in each country. So how you design your CBDC, what are the policy implications of your CBDC is very important. And we're finding that some central banks around the world are kind of rushing with this CBDC thing when you really do need to take some time to evaluate what are implications, what are policy implications, and how are you designing what technology. The technology bit isn't so much the hard bit. The hard bit is more around the policy and governance.
Alex, wax poetic.
Well, there's a three-way competition going on between central banks and their currencies and governments. We're kind of loosely aligned. Corporations, remember Facebook was going to put out its cryptocurrency, and then there's individuals doing it from the ground up. It's shocking to me that people in the crypto community don't come out full force aggressively with all of the power against central bank digital currencies. So I agree with my fellow panelists that we have to remove this layer. In the beginning, it was so useful to have a central bank. If you have the United States with 500 currencies, well, that's going to be very, very counterproductive. It's why the North beat the South. They had to move a train across the South required unloading and unloading 11 times because they had all these mismatching rail networks. In the North, they could do it in 3 days. They had one rail network. But now that we have interoperable systems, we don't need central banks. People don't understand what cryptocurrencies are. They're internet protocols. They're just a protocol on top of the internet. The guy from BSV was talking about IPv6 as a 64-bit protocol. It's 128, but that is key. We don't need central banks anymore for anything. All they are is an invitation to butt into your life and steal your money and tell you what to do. Now, we solved this problem in the United States in 1776 by saying there should be separation of church and state. There are three kinds of governments: officially atheist, no religion; secular, where you can have them but the state stays out of it; and then officially theist, like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel. They're all officially, they have their state religions. Having a central bank digital currency is a form of theism. It's a form of having a religion without any ethical values. And imagine in the future you buy an electric car, but because you made a post that someone somewhere in some bureaucracy didn't like, they shut down your electric car for 1 week. That's what a central bank digital currency is. There is an alternative, and that is to have government separate between money and state and let the money find its own market and level. Friedrich Hayek wrote a whole book about this kind of stuff. So in terms of central bank digital currencies, the ones that are out there now are utter failures. And they will always be a failure for reasons that are spelled out by Clayton Christensen, the most prominent professor. He's dead now, but when he was alive at the Harvard Business School. And he says, if you're a company and you have a standard product, that it's extremely hard for you to create your own competitor to your standard product, right? Because you're always going to favor it. So digital currencies are the little tiny bastard stepchild of governments that the existing currency will always fight against. So it's much better to have clean currencies that can be good for that group. And we're now in the process of seeing the collapse of the petrodollar that was started at the suggestion of Adnan Khashoggi, who's also dead. But before he died, Adnan Khashoggi flew all over the world with me. And he asked me to please come up with plans for Saudi Arabia to get out of the US dollar and out of US treasuries. So what we see now with Saudi Arabia talking about taking the Chinese yuan as a currency for oil is the end of the central bank digital currency called the Federal Reserve Note and others. And now we're ready. We don't need more crap from governments. We need more from entrepreneurs.
So we're over time, and I appreciate the dispensation. But I got to give Michelle the last word. I got to give her the last word. Go.
No, it's fantastic. I've enjoyed just listening to that. But for me, let's be realistic, right? Let's put things in check, Because I think at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, I think most central banks around the world are going ahead with looking at CBDCs, right? For me, I look at it from the people perspective, right? It's very important for me as a person to be able to have choice and to have power over what happens over my data or my information or my money. So for me, I'm really concerned around the privacy side. I'm concerned around what is giving me choice. There has to be alternatives. It's not us, versus them kind of situation, right? It's about providing what is actually appropriate for people, what is secure for people. In terms of CBDCs, I mean, there are opportunities with CBDCs, especially like I said in the beginning around wholesale CBDCs and, interbank relationships where you can have better cross-border interactions. We want to grow, for example, the continent of Africa and grow trade relationships between the Middle East and Africa, for example. That can easily be done by just making sure we have interoperable systems. CBDC is just one option. It is not the only option. I'm a crypto girl. I started in crypto 2010. I invested in crypto 2010. So I'm not against crypto, but I'm also not against CBDC. What I'm looking for is choice, and what I'm looking for is the ability to have control over what happens to my data, my information, my money.
And on that note, this was a very spicy panel. I hope you all enjoyed it. Big round of applause for our panelists.